Daily Coin. My name is Rory, and I'm glad you stuck around for part 2 of this great interview that I recently did with Rob Kirby of Kirby Analytics. We're going to pick up the interview right where we left off with the crimes against humanity committed by the Bankster Cabal. So kick back, and here we go. Thank you so much. Yes, because
the rest of the world, let me tell you, the rest of the world, believe it or not, has come up the curve a lot in the last 8 or 10 years.
Yes.
On just what America's been doing.
Yes.
And when I say America's been doing, listen, America is a captured state. America is no longer ruled by Americans. America has been taken over in a stealth, silent coup by a group of globalists. And these people pay no allegiance to any flag. They have disdain for humanity, and they think that we're a blight on the earth.
Yes.
That's where we're at.
Well, let me ask you this, because
Google or go to YouTube and type in Ahmadinejad meets American rabbis. It's about a 3-minute long YouTube video. And this is something from back around 2006 or 2007, when Iranian leader Ahmadinejad was in New York to attend UN meetings, and he met all the top American scholarly rabbis, all the top people. I've shown it to some people, and it's made them cry.
So
nobody in the Fourth Estate ever talked about it, but in the you know, the world is if the world's going to be saved from its current, it's going to be the Fifth Estate that saves it, not the Fourth, because the fourth is bought and owned, just like the political apparatchik in the Western world.
Now, let me ask you this also. Do you, because this is something else that I believe, Rob, and that the same playbook that was in use for World War I and World War II is currently in play now. And what I mean by that is you have once again, the dirtbags at the top, the Rothschilds, the Rockefellers, the Morgans, all these scumbags. They've got the playbook for Obama and Kissinger.
Sure.
And they've got the playbook for Putin and Z, and they're all working out of the same playbook.
Frankly, I don't think Putin. You see, I don't think Putin is on side with these guys.
Okay.
I mean, there's plenty of there's plenty of criminals in the group. It's not a small group.
No.
It's a pretty decent sized group. But they've seized control of America, and these people definitely have an agenda.
Yes.
And their agenda is one world government, one world currency, one world religion, which is the worship of state. Okay. And they have contempt for humanity, and these people, or many of the people in this group, have written white papers over the last 30, 40, 50 years stating their desire to have the world's population reduced to around 500 million. And for about 6.5 billion of us, that means tough luck.
Yeah.
You see? And I think, quite frankly, I think Putin has a problem with that. I don't think Putin wants to see, 80% of his population or 90% of his population liquidated.
What about Z? Do you think that he's, because I mean at this stage,
who
Z out of China?
Listen. I think the Chinese play the game because China, playing the game they've been playing for the last 10 or 15 years, has risen their position in the world dramatically, while America has been falling on their own sword. And there will come a time when China will turn on America,
yes,
and just say, you know what, we're done with you now.
Good luck.
Yeah. But I mean, why not allow your arch enemy to destroy themselves?
just sit back and watch.
Yes, it's pretty much what they've been doing. I wouldn't say they've been cooperating with America. You know, they've been negotiating bilateral swap arrangements with every other country on the planet.
Yep.
They've been shunning the dollar. You know, they've been you know, buying up assets all over the world like a banshee. No, I think China's done everything that they can very quietly to undermine U.S. dollar hegemony. The Chinese are very aware of all that's been going on in the Anglo-American banking complex.
Yes.
Very aware.
Well,
very up the curve. Huh?
They're wrapped up in it. I mean,
they're sick of it.
Exactly.
They're sick of it.
If
everyone
I'm
else.
sick of it, how can someone else outside here not be sick of it? I'm sick of it.
Well, they are. You see, and that's why it doesn't have that much longer to live. Because the whole world is galvanizing against America. And the globalists that control America. And, you know, I'll just tell you something, boy. The air is being let out of the tires of everything that we historically have known to be American. And America is being forced into isolation. I know they talk a big game like they're imposing sanctions all over the world on everyone else, but all I can tell you is, you know, what is actually happening around the world is people are moving away from the dollar and trading the dollar in everything.
Yes, and I can see that. I mean,
it's happening in spades all around us.
Yes. And I mean, the Chinese are opening up these yuan, renminbi, trade hubs, and there's one in Canada. They're opening one up in Canada.
And this does not signal longevity for the dollar.
No.
So anyway, despite the engineered rise in the dollar index in the last couple months, it's sort of like a wounded animal beating on its chest, roaring at the rest of the world that has it cornered, saying, you know, don't screw with me, I'm the king of the forest. And it's dying.
Yes, it
is. You know, and it's bleeding profusely.
Well, and I have to tell you, Rob, it's really
that's what's happening.
It's really sad because, you know, it's not the people. It's not.
No, I know that.
It's not you, and it's not me, and it's not.
I know.
That's the sad part but when the bombs start flying, they're not going to care.
You don't have to tell me. I spent the first 20 years or 25 years of my life, and I literally was very vocal. I was a Reagan flag waver, even as a Canadian. And I was very vocal about saying America is the greatest country in the world. And what's been done to your great country in such a short period of time. It makes me want to cry.
Yes.
Yeah.
I mean, it's sickening.
Well, it's been taken over by a bunch. Basically, it's,
psychopaths.
Psychopaths and treasonous. But you see, it's not
treasonous.
It hasn't happened by accident.
No.
It's been very, very, very cunningly and cleverly orchestrated by a bunch of absolutely diabolical, filthy, fiendish people, and the criminal acts that are being committed in the name of good people.
Yes,
it makes me want to vomit.
Makes me want to do a lot of things, including vomit.
Yeah.
I want to change gears here because.
But listen, and speaking along the lines of the lines of crap that we've been sold. You know, we've been told that the Fed has cut their bond buying. QE has come to an end. Well, listen. Let's just review this. It was last December that the Fed said that they were going to stop QE. Okay.
Yes.
They announced it in December of last year. And when they announced it in December of last year, I think the 10-year bond was yielding, right around 3%.
Yeah, it was.
And they said that they were going to gradually remove their bond buying over a period of months. And so what have we seen since then in terms of the 10-year bond? Okay. We've seen the 10-year bond yield go from roughly 3% down as low a couple, 2-3 weeks ago or a month ago, an intraday low of 185. I think we're currently at 234. We saw this is all with the Fed saying that they're gonna stop buying bonds. We saw a little country, Belgium, with a GDP of around 400 billion, buy, I don't know, roughly that amount of bonds. I think in their account as reported by the U.S. Treasury in their TIC accounting. Naomi Prince, who is an ex-Goldman banker who's turned basically whistleblower, she wrote a paper dated November 10th saying QE isn't dying, it's morphing. And in that paper, Naomi Prince documents how the Fed, all the buying that the Fed isn't doing has just been, the slack has been all picked up by the big American banks, principally by Citi and JP Morgan. So, I mean, I'll tell you something for what it's worth. I've been on the record publicly saying since 2008, very, very clearly and very, very adamantly that the Fed could never, ever, ever stop QE. The very life cycle of fiat currency dictates that money must grow vertically, and that's exactly what it's doing. And the other thing I've been saying for a number of years is you cannot any longer look at the Fed's balance sheet in isolation. Because central banks, particularly in the Western world, have such interlocking credit facilities linking the two, you have to look at them sort of as a group a lot more so today than ever before, and you cannot any longer look at the Fed's balance sheet in isolation. And this sort of gets piled on to not only the Fed hiding the buying of treasuries in the Belgium accounts, and not only, in addition to that, Naomi Prince talking in terms of how the private banks are doing the bond buying for the Fed as the Fed has stepped away from officially being the buyer. But you also have to look at some of the helpers like the Bank of Japan, whether it's the Bank of Japan this week or the European Central Bank next week or next month. You have to look at these central bank balance sheets in aggregate as opposed to in isolation, because that's very consistent with this whole globalist theme. Because understand, the goal of the globalists is to have one world government, one world currency, and one world bank. And we've absolutely been moving towards that goal. And as we move along the timeline towards that goal, it only makes sense that you'd have to start looking at their finances on an interrelated basis as opposed to in isolation. Because it doesn't make sense to look at, it doesn't make sense to look at a crime family's financial affairs by one thug,
right?
Because the crime family is a group of thugs, and the global central banking family, which is the crux of them, is at the heart of this movement towards globalism and the one world currency concept. So you can't really look at one arm of the family or one arm of the wing of this entity, this huge diabolical criminal complex. You can't look at one wing of it in isolation, and that's something that I think a lot of people are hung up on, and a lot of people are stuck on. They tend to look at these things in isolation.
Outside of the bank, obviously the Bank of Japan and Belgium, I don't know if they're still buying or not. I think they just did that one shuffle with them.
Yeah, but you see, the whole point of all this, Rory, is it doesn't really matter on a given day who's doing it.
Okay.
Because what we've already established here is there's a clear pattern that it's like a pass the hot potato. Because we started off talking about Belgium, and then we talked about the Naomi Prince documentation that it's the banks, the as in the big banks, which happen to be also the big derivatives banks. And then there's the bigger enchilada on top of all that, which is you got to look at other central banks. Okay. So they've got different places where they hide these things. Listen, I can remember writing an article back in, I think it was 2006 or maybe 2005, and the title of the article was "Pirates of the Caribbean," because back in that time frame they were stuffing U.S. paper in Caribbean accounts, probably of the Fed, where they that's where they were hiding the hot potato then. So these people are experts in obfuscation, deflection, and basically telling lies. You see, it's been part of history. This is another tidbit to really keep in mind. It was back in 2006, the spring of 2006, when Business Week published an article. And in this article, it stated, and I just want to read this to you.
Okay.
I want to make sure I get this very concisely and very correct. Okay, first reported in 2006 when Business Week Online published a piece titled "Intelligence Czar Can Waive SEC Rules." At the time, President George W. Bush bestowed on his then intelligence czar, John Negroponte, broad authority in the name of national security to excuse publicly traded companies from their usual accounting and securities disclosure obligations. Notice of the development came in a brief entry in the Federal Register dated May 5, 2006. What that means is if institutions like J.P. Morgan are deemed to be integral to U.S. national security, they could be legally excused from reporting their true financial condition. The entry in the Federal Register is described as follows. The memo Bush signed on May 5, which was published 7 days later in the Federal Register, and I've actually looked at this in the Federal Register because you can find it online. It had the unrevealing title, Assignment of Function Relating to Granting Authority for Issuance of Certain Directives, Memorandum for the Director of National Intelligence. So you see, they give it this long circus name, Rory, so they can hide it in plain view.
Right.
So that if you're actually going through the Federal Register and you're reading the new law that's been enacted, it looks innocuous and it looks like not much of anything has been done. So in this document, Bush addresses his then security czar, John Negroponte, saying, I hereby assign to you the function of the president under Section 13B(3)(a) of the Securities and Exchange Act of 1934. Okay, a trip to the statute books shows that the amended version of the 1934 Act states that with respect to certain matters concerning national security of the United States, the president or head of the executive branch agency may exempt companies from certain critical legal obligations. These obligations include keeping accurate books, records, and accounts, and maintaining a system of internal accounting controls sufficient to ensure the propriety of financial transactions and the preparation of financial statements in compliance with generally accepted accounting principles.
Wow.
So what this says, okay, this is a law that's on the books, okay? And what it says is that, for instance, the head of national security in the United States, or the head of the SEC, or basically the head of any federal agency that's an appointee of the president, can allow publicly traded American institutions, so long as they're deemed to be in for national security purposes, they can be excused from accounting.
Wow. It'll never be fixed.
So from there, I ask you, do you think, I ask this question to anybody listening, is there anyone out there who believes that during the financial crisis of 2007, 2008, that a pass might have been issued to one or a few American financial institutions?
I would say all of them.
Here. So this is what it means, and this speaks to the whole notion of too big to fails or too big to jails. What it means really to me, Rory, is that we have rules on the books where some institutions who don't get the pass, they are subject or held subject to accounting. And, if they don't play the game the way the powers that be want them to, well, they get snuffed out. Yeah. Because they don't measure up under the rules that are on the books. But if you play nice, or if you're important to do how the game is played, well, then you get the pass. And when I think back in real time, and when I think back on how the financial crisis worked itself out, I know that Bear Stearns, they got snuffed out. Yep. Because I think they were held subject to accounting. There were other financial institutions that I would suggest to you had just as many subprime bonds and portfolios, but my view is they probably weren't held to the same accounting standard that Bear Stearns was. And there's very, very good history, if you know your history, as to why Bear Stearns would have been held to a more rigorous standard than the rest. So I don't know whether we can trust any of the accounting. And then there's, going back even before the official financial crisis, we can talk about Fannie and Freddie and how they didn't publish financials for how many years. The stewardship of the global financial edifice as it has been conducted by the people that currently run the U.S. financial system has been so deplorable and so hideous and so off the charts, colossally criminal. It can only make anybody who's half informed shake their head. And I'll tell you something else, Rory. The world will ultimately know and will record the depravity and the complicity and the duplicity of our fourth estate, our mainstream financial press, our mainstream financial analysts, who even if they didn't know, they ought to have known that something was tragically wrong with this so many years ago and should have been sounding the alarm bells, and they've all sat silent.
All silent. Not a peep. Not ever.
No, and if anything, they've shilled for these criminals.
Yes.
And they've aided and abetted.
Yes.
And they've bought them time. And they've listen, tacit approval of everything they've done.
It's mind-boggling. I mean, it really is. I mean, the way that you spell it out and lay it out in detail, with the way that our system has been corrupted, is just it's almost overwhelming, Rob. I mean, seriously. I mean, it's like, my God.
Yeah.
It's like getting down into the depths of hell almost, and looking around and.
Rory, I know there will be people listening who will say that this guy's just too negative and nothing can be this bad. All I'll say to people who have their heads stuffed up their behinds that far, just remember that the people that are behind this malfeasance that I speak of, this macro malfeasance, these are the same people that brought us Fast and Furious. These are the same people that brought us Benghazi, brought to us by the same people that brought us the Affordable Health Care Act. And to anybody who's American in the audience, are you enjoying your lower premiums yet? These are the same people that say raising the national debt limit doesn't increase the debt.
Yeah. Or that bring us heroin in the name of the war on drugs.
There you go. The upshot to all this, Rory, is I do believe that there is power in knowledge, and knowledge is power.
Yes.
And getting this turned around, if it's ever going to be turned around, is sharing the knowledge and being informed is one of the best ways to make it stop or to reverse what's occurred.
Well, we have to make it, we just have to put the brakes on first before we can reverse it. And like you said, having people informed and knowledgeable about what has happened and what's creating today that started 8-9 years ago, at least, or that's when. Now, I want to make sure that I'm clear on something, Rob, and that is, I think that something is broken. They've been trying to patch it together and paper over it for so long that they've actually forgotten what the hell it is that they're trying to fix, or what it is that's broken.
Oh, Rory, I think it's worse than that, because because you know what? I never actually gave you the punchline to the whole thing about LIBOR being broken.